Hey, what's going on everyone? Justin here at Triumphal Reads, and in this video we're going to be doing my tentative TBR list for the month of October. Originally I was going to do another readathon. There's Victober and Tolkientober and a bunch of like Halloween or horror themed ones going on. But I decided I'm probably not going to do a readathon this month only because I've done quite a few pretty much just in a row in the past 3 or 4 months. I've done at least one or two like each month. And this month I just kind of want to read just kind of like whatever I want to read without having like any challenges or any themes or anything. So that's basically what I'm doing, and let's just get right to it. So I picked 3 fantasy books that I would like to try and read. And the first one's going to be The Crimson Campaign by Brian McClellan. This is my autographed edition that I got as one of my Valentine's gifts earlier this year. If I can, turn one page, but apparently I can't. As you can see, it's pretty cool. I really enjoy Flintlock fantasy. It's one of my favorite subgenres of fantasy, and Brian McClellan is obviously one of like the premier authors in that genre. I've read the first book in that trilogy, the Powder trilogy. I definitely enjoyed it. I did enjoy the first book in his second trilogy, Gods of Blood and Powder. I like that one a little bit more, but I figure I need to read the first. I want to try to finish the first trilogy before I go on to the second book in the second trilogy, which just came out this year. So yeah, that's basically why I'm doing that. And then we got another fantasy book, Wildcat, which is book 1 of the Caledon Saga by J.P. Harker. And this one is one that I received for free in exchange for a review. I've read about 50 or 60 pages, I believe, and I'm really enjoying it so far. The main premise of this book is it's heavily inspired by Celtic Welsh, basically resistance against Imperial Rome. And I just in like the first, like I said, 50 or 60 pages, there's tons of influences from Celtic and Roman cultures definitely in the book. So it is turning out to be really interesting. It's almost like historical fiction fantasy, which is kind of a cool genre. And we obviously have a strong female character, Rhea, who's the main protagonist, which is also pretty refreshing as well. I'm enjoying it so far, and hopefully I can finish this one in the month of October. And for our last fantasy book, I want to read Half the World, which is the second book in the Shattered Seas trilogy by Joe Abercrombie. I don't know why this was the first trilogy I picked up for Joe Abercrombie. I know his First Law series is really popular. I read Half a King, which was one of my first fantasy books that I've read since basically high school. So I figure I might as well finish the series, and then that way I can move on into some of his other trilogies and other series going on. So that's why I want to read Half the World. Alright, so now let's move on to some of the nonfiction stuff that I would like to read. Just move these books over here. And now that I don't have readathon stuff going on, I'm going to try and get back into my swing of things of reading at least one Oxford Very Short Introduction and one Osprey Publishing book each month. This month I picked The British Redcoat and the years are 1740 to 1793 because there's another one which I also have, which I believe is 1793 to, I believe, after the Napoleonic Wars, so in the 1820s or something like that. So there's a bunch on British Redcoats, and I just figure I might as well start reading them. These obviously have great illustrations that are super accurate and pertinent to the time period or culture or unit or whatever involved. So that's always really cool. I don't know too much actually about the British Empire per se, especially the Redcoats and stuff, because I don't personally read much modern-ish history. Pretty much like I said, once I hit Renaissance times, I kind of just trail off. But I figure I might as well read something like this. This one will be kind of neat because this would be the Redcoats during the time of the American Revolution. So that's interesting as well for me. So that's why I picked this one. And then after this one, I'll probably read the second one. All right. And for the Oxford Very Short Introductions, as I mentioned a little bit ago, right here. Try to read one a month, and this month I'm going with Plants, a Very Short Introduction by Timothy Walker. Basically, like I said, these are either hit or miss. They're either really good or just kind of all over the place. But I think with a topic like plants, I think it'll be just a really good kind of overview of, plants. I took some biology courses in college before I switched majors and stuff, and I took a plant taxonomy course, so I'm hoping maybe that'll help me either understand this book better or this book will help me jog my memory from plant taxonomy. But anyways, I like nonfiction, I like life sciences, and this is a perfect life science book out of the Oxford Very Short Introduction series. All right, for the next 5 books, I just picked a book from each genre that I like to read since I don't have any challenges to complete. And we're going to start off with a Greek book, and it's The Greek Ideal and Its Survival by Moses Hadas. And this has been on my TBR twice before. This is time number 3, but we're going to make sure it gets done this month. I've honestly just totally forgot about it last month. Not really sure why, but anyways, this book basically deals with a bunch of Greek concepts and Greek principles from ancient and classical times, such as arete, which is like excellence or striving for excellence. Basically, sort of what the Greek or Homeric ethos, kind of like what the Greeks aspired to achieve, basically, in their lives. So he goes through different concepts, like some other ones are like Greek tragedy and stuff, and basically how that shaped basically Greek culture and Greek thought, and how it's been basically transmitted down to the present day. It's really interesting. I finished about the first half so far. It's a pretty short read. Yeah, the back cover is ripped off because it's like really beat up and stuff, but yeah, it is really good, and I just totally forgot about it last month, so we're gonna make sure we get it done this month. All right, for a philosophy book, I'm trying to start reading philosophy again. I've been like really not doing great. I think I've read like 2 philosophy books this year. I'm going with Aristotle's Children, How Christians, Muslims, and Jews Rediscovered Ancient Wisdom and Illuminated the Middle Ages by Richard Rubinstein. So this is going to be pretty cool. I really enjoy reading Aristotle. He's my favorite Greek philosopher. So I'm hoping this book is basically about the basically different religions, how they either use or interpreted basically Aristotle down through ancient times and then the Middle Ages, and I assume basically down to like kind of current thought and stuff, at least a little bit, and basically how Aristotle's theories and stuff, even if they're like wrong, obviously most of them are kind of like crazy now, but basically how they were important, like for example in the Middle Ages, and how that sort of shaped that time period or the culture of that period. So it sounds really interesting. Basically yes, because like all the different faiths that all used Aristotle, as Aristotle was not part of any of them. So it's kind of interesting just to see basically all the tangents that Aristotle's thoughts kind of go in. All right, for a medieval book, I'm going with Life in a Medieval City by Joseph and Francis Guise. And when I did the TBR book tag, I totally found I have Life in a Medieval Village, Life in a Medieval Castle, and Life in a Medieval City. And I haven't read any of them, and I've wanted to for like ever and ever and ever, and I just never have. I don't have a good explanation why. So pretty much I'm just going to start doing it right now, or at least read one of the 3. And I pick Life in a Medieval City just because that's the one I think I know the least about in particular. So it's a really good, from what I've heard, these are really good social histories on basically like daily lives for like regular people during the Middle Ages and stuff. So I'm hoping I learned quite a bit from it, because like I said, the medieval towns, medieval cities, it's kind of a gray area for me where I'm not really sure like too much about what's actually more myth or what's more true or whatever. So I'm hoping, like I said, learn quite a bit from this book. All right, for a Roman book, I'm going to read a biography of a Roman emperor, and it's Hadrian and the Triumph of Rome by Anthony Everett, best-selling author of Cicero. I read Cicero in either January or February of this year, and I really enjoyed it. And even though he's a popular historian, I definitely learned a lot, and he has really good use of, or he does really good use of the primary source material. And so, and obviously because he's a popular historian, it's a really nice, easygoing read. But like I said, I still learned a lot, so I'm hoping it's going to be the same for Hadrian. Hadrian, as an emperor, is probably most well known for Hadrian's Wall out in the UK. But interesting enough, even though he ranks really high, he's usually known as one of the 5 good emperors. I honestly think he actually overall did more harm to the Roman Empire than is realized, based on some of his political sort of, or what do you call like foreign policy strategies, I guess you could say, by closing everything off. Though I will say culturally, he did definitely reinforce the empire and help prop it up some by promoting Hellenism and Greek thought and Greek culture, and especially promoting Athens and stuff like that. But yeah, hopefully after I read this biography, I'll learn more about Hadrian and his thought processes, maybe why he did certain things, and come to understand him better in that time period as well. So hopefully biography of Hadrian turns out to be really good. And lastly, for like a life science memoir-ish book I'm really excited about is The Names of the Stars, a memoir, A Life in the Wild by Pete Fromm. And basically all I know about this is he wrote like a memoir a while ago when he was in his 20s or something, where he basically had to like live in the woods or something as like a college student or right after college for like one of his jobs, and that became really popular. And then he basically has a similar job 20 years later when he's older, like in his 40s or 50s or something, and he just basically talks about his like daily life having to like go through like like the thick woods of like either it was like Montana or Colorado or North Dakota, something like that out west, and basically his daily life basically like out in the wilderness for work. So I think it has a lot of like really cool, basically nature insights, and just like I said, it's kind of a mix of a memoir and a life science type book. So it sounds really interesting to me. It just sounds like something right up my alley, and I'm really hoping Names of the Stars turns out to be really good. And that's what I'm going to be reading for a life science book, besides the plants book. So there you guys have it. Those are the 10-ish books that I want to get done in the month of October. Hopefully I can get through all of those. And then if I do, I might just throw in something else. Who knows what? Probably another history book if I had to guess. But tell me what you guys thought about any of these. If you've read any of them or heard of the authors or anything like that, leave some comments down below. And also tell me what you guys are planning on reading this month, or if you're participating in any readathons. Glad to hear what you guys are reading. And always remember, whatever you do read, read victoriously.